All right. Okay, I think we are now live. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Too loud? Too soft? What's the word? Everybody have a good Thanksgiving? Oh, nice to see you there, Devin. All right, good. Looks like audio seems to be good for people. Shen Partey, welcome. Sam Rosenstock, welcome as well. All right, fantastic. Let's see if I can get a little more light here. All right, going a bit more of a cozy vibe, but we got some light going here. All right, good. So, as for how's your guys' Thanksgiving yesterday? Good. I guess for those of you Americans, how was your Thanksgiving? All good? All right. Just fixing up a couple of things on my end. All right. Well, fantastic. Glad you're all having a good Thanksgiving. Thoughts on the midterms? It was a mess. It was like, I was never fully bought into the red wave idea, though it definitely did even worse than I thought they would. So, yeah. So for everybody who thinks that, the Republicans haven't had to pay the price for either January 6th or the overturning of Roe, they have. And they still did surprisingly well despite that happening, which should tell you a bit about people's perceptions of our current situation. Let's see, yep. Getting some turkey, family time, all wonderful stuff. All right, so let's get on with the main programming here. So I decided to do more anti-communist propaganda this week, or this month, for this month's live stream. And I decided to do one that's been suggested a lot. I remember seeing this years ago, so I've already watched this one, but it has been a while since I have seen it. It is the Make Mine Freedom from 1948. That'll be the first thing we're watching this evening. Yep. Alright, so here we go. Make Mine Freedom, 1948. Some good old-fashioned anti-communist propaganda right here. I find it kind of odd. Like, as early as 1948, golf was seen as this, I guess this white upper middle class or upper class kind of like activity, stereotyped as dad behavior. It's kind of funny that way. Oh, no sound from everybody? Oh shit, no sound? Okay, hold on, let me try to figure this out. Alright, let me try to... Alright, sorry about that. I'll have to restart it and see if we got it working now. Okay, I don't think it's picking up for any of you guys yet. I am terribly sorry about this. It's usually working. Okay, are you guys hearing it now? See, I just did something to... There we go. Alright, good. Alright, we got sound now. Perfect. Alright. Sorry for the delay. Technical difficulties on my end. I need to stream more to learn how OBS works properly. Alright. Let us get going.
America is many things to many people. To a 17-year-old kid, it's the malt shop on the corner. To Grandpa, it's the front porch in the cool of the evening. To Mother and her family, it's church on Sunday morning. And to Dad, it's his favorite relaxation. It's the Cracker Barrel philosophers in Crabtree Corners. And it's the tycoons in Wall Street. It's all races, creeds, and religions. It's freedom to work at the job you like. Freedom of speech and to peaceably assemble. Freedom to own property. Security from unlawful search or seizure.
Where's your warrant, Flatfoot?
The right to a speedy and public trial.
Am I being detained? Am I being detained here, people? Yeah, I remember that old libertarian line from the, oh gosh, not even fully libertarian, but definitely like the anarcho-libertarian stuff from the 2010s. You'd always hear them, go like, you always hear them just advocate saying, "Am I being detained?" anytime they interact with a cop, thinking those are magic words that can get them out of being arrested or something.
Protection against cruel punishments and excessive fines. The right to vote. And to worship God in your own way. It is these freedoms that have made America strong.
Okay, so we got our freedom. But management's lousing up everything.
Labor is at fault. It's ruining the country.
My constituents, as your elected representative, I can assure you Labor's right, management's right. I'm strictly neutral.
Labor, management, politicians, phooey. They can't tell corn from oats.
It's only taking money out of
Hurry, step right up, folks. Here's the answer to your problems, Doctor.
Okay, so you can tell from the art style, and especially a lot of the music, if I had to hazard a guess, I'm guessing some people from Warner Brothers, it's like either people from Warner Brothers worked on this, because this is very similar to the style of their cartoons from the time period, so either they worked on it, or they were heavily inspired by their work at the time. Definitely more so than you could see any kind of Disney influence. That's something to be understood, is that Warner Brothers was actually bigger than Disney at this time. Disney had a couple, the first feature-length animated films, but Warner Brothers was probably at the top of mind for more people.
Utopia's sensational new discovery, ism. Ism will cure, folks. Here's the answer to your problems, Dr. Utopia's sensational new discovery, ism. Ism will cure any ailment of the body politic. It's terrific. It's tremendous. Once you swallow the contents of this bottle, you'll have the bountiful benefit of higher wages, shorter hours, and security. Enormous profits, no strikes. Remember, you're the big boss. Government control, no worry about votes. Name your own salary. Bigger crops, lower cost. Why, ism even makes the weather perfect every day. And now then, because we are introducing this amazing item for the first time in this country, it isn't going to cost you 1 cent. All you have to do is sign this little scrap of paper, and you get your bottle absolutely free.
I hereby turn over to ISM Incorporated everything I have, including my freedom and the freedom of my children and my children's children, in return for which said ISM promises to take care of me forever.
Oh boy, so I don't watch many of your lefty streamer types, your Hassans and whatnot, but I can only guess if they were watching this, they would definitely decry it as, both sides isms or whatever they're calling it nowadays, but it's like, or even dirtier, centrism. Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't see propaganda here. I only see facts. I don't get this. I must be watching the wrong video.
Get out of the way!
Pardon me.
And who are you, my good man?
I'm John Q. Public.
Ah, my fine friend, you're just in time to share this generous and gigantic offer. Sign right here.
Mind if I read it first?
Hurry up,
Keep your shirts on, boys. Including my freedom. Freedom? Well, sign away my freedom. Why, this is ridiculous.
Don't be corny, brother.
Sure, our system of free enterprise isn't perfect. But before we throw it away for some imported double talk, let's turn the clock back a few years to see what it's done for us. For example, back in the 1890s, Joe Dokes was just a guy who liked to tinker around his barn. Some people thought Joe was lazy. Some even thought he was nuts. But one day, he had an idea. And because he was free to dream his dream and tinker, Joe had a chance to make something of himself and his idea. So, of course, some people didn't think so much of Joe's idea. But that didn't stop him. So Joe got some money from young Aunt Minnie and Uncle Angus and Grandpappy and Mr. Titus. When Joe's friends and relatives used their savings to help him buy tools and property, they were capitalists. Don't blush, folks. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Now, naturally, Joe needed some help. So he hired Willie Lumpkin, who was out of work anyway, and before long, Willie had the know-how and became skilled labor. Because capital, management, and labor worked together, Joe's idea grew. It grew and did things even he never...
So, something I suspect, and I'm going to need to dig more into, like, the production of this cartoon to figure out if this was the case. But if I remember correctly, this came out in 1948, which means it was probably being produced in 1947. But this was around the time we were seeing sort of like the early phases of the Red Scare. And the Red Scare, contrary to like a lot of popular opinions or depictions of it, the Red Scare was actually inspired by real concerns. Like, in 1945, you had the Amerasia affair, in which they found out basically that, spies had infiltrated the State Department and the OSS during World War II and fed false information to the State Department, causing it to make decisions that favored Soviet foreign policy during the war. You know, this caused them to send fewer resources to Chiang Kai-shek and the Nationalists, and send more resources to Mao and the Communists during World War II, because these agents were telling the State Department that, that Chiang Kai-shek, he's pocketing all the money and he's not fighting, while the Communists are doing all the fighting, when it was quite literally the opposite. You know, it's like the Nationalists would go in, fight the Japanese for however long, and then the Japanese would pull back, and then the Nationalists would pursue the Japanese, and after the Nationalists left this town or village, the Communists would come in and take over. And they weren't fighting. They were, they were doing all the rearguard actions, while the Nationalists were doing the brunt of the work. And so when World War II was over, and the Civil War would recommence, the Nationalists, they had fewer resources. They were more, they had taken a heavier hit in the war, and so weren't in as good a position to fight the Communists. And it was revealed through a communist publication called Amerasia in 1945, and they found that Amerasia was publishing basically classified OSS reports. And so that happened. And then there was the Alger Hiss case in 1948, I want to say, about the time this cartoon came out. Yeah, 1948, in which Alger Hiss, somebody who worked, I think he was in the Justice Department, but he was a very close friend and at times advisor of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was with Roosevelt at a bunch of the Big Three conferences and is often blamed with basically getting Roosevelt to give in to Stalin's demands in Eastern Europe, to basically just give up Poland and everything else there. And so that gets uncovered in 1948. And then shortly after that, you would have the Rosenbergs in, I think, 1950 or 51. And so that's kind of the atmosphere in which this cartoon is being produced in which communists working for a foreign government legitimately did impact foreign policy, and it looked like they were possibly on, they were on the march. And so that's kind of the historical context of this cartoon.
Dreamed of. Today, the automobile industry provides millions of jobs that never existed before. And remember, this is a story of only one industry. There are thousands more scattered all over the United States whose history of development is pretty much the same. We've built a country under the American system that sends more young people to high school and college than all the rest of the world combined. Why, even in the Depression, our wages bought more food, clothing, travel, and entertainment than the wages of any other people in the world. Our country has a national income equal to the total national incomes of any other sixth nation in the world. With only 7% of the Earth's, we drive 70% of the world's automobiles. That's just a sample of the things the capitalistic system has given us in only 160 years. Before signing up, you boys ought to try a little taste of Dr. Ism's formula to see what you'd get in exchange for your freedom. Go ahead, try it.
You can't do this to me! I'll strike!
The state forbids strikes.
Wait till the union hears about this!
Ah, yes, the Union. Welcome to our ranks, number 1313.
I'll take this case to the Supreme Court.
The state is the Supreme Court. Our decision is as follows. No more private property. No more you.
The farm folk will put a stop to this.
Farmers don't vote anymore.
What'll they do for seed next year?
You won't have to worry about next year. The state will do your planning from now on.
We must fight to regain our freedom, or everything is lost. Everything!
Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine.
You know, I think I just realized the politician character here. Yeah, I think it's, yeah, I just realized that's supposed to be a caricature of William Jennings Bryan. Yeah, it's a caricature of William Jennings Bryan, the three-time presidential candidate of the Democratic Party in 1896, 1900, and 1908. Yeah, state propaganda speaker 3120. Yeah, that's I think what they're going for right there. And I don't think he was alive anymore by the time this came out, because I think he died in the 20s or 30s. William Jennings. Yeah, he died in 1925. So yeah, this would be the equivalent of like referencing, I want to say Bob Dole, but Bob Dole died not too long ago. Like, yeah, I can't think of a good example at the top of my head, but yeah, by the time this came out, William Jennings Bryan had been dead for like 20 years.
Everything is fine.
When anybody preaches disunity, tries to pit one of us against the other through class warfare, race hatred, or religious intolerance, you know that person seeks to rob us of our freedom and destroy our very lives. And we know what to do about it.
Now, gentlemen, no violence, please. Don't throw those bottles. Don't throw those bottles. No! Oh, no! No! Hey! Oh, oh, hey! Oh, oh.
Working together to produce an ever greater abundance of material and spiritual values for all. That is the secret of American prosperity.
All right. Well, how was that, everybody? Let me try to pick up on some of your questions and comments here. Yeah, yep, I have not been detained. You are right, Shen Partey. They left out more than just atheists. Like gerrymandering and Jim Crow. Yeah, it feels like Warner Bros, especially with that wolf whistle to the woman. That feels like something like Tex Avery would did. Yep. Isms upon isms. And built for speed, bat fist. Or fist bat. Let's go, Joe. Yeah, it's Warner Brothers. See, Hardy Hat says, kind of crazy to think senior citizens of the time might remember a car like that. My dad has worked in with cars forever. He was working professionally with cars since before I was born, so he remembers cars like that. That's because he likes older cars. The RG. This is definitely from Warner. The character is named Joe Dokes, like Joe McDokes, a Warner character. Very well may be. I wouldn't be, like I said earlier, I wouldn't be surprised at this if they had Harding College had a licensed or a contracted WB Warner Brothers to make it. They did a lot of stuff like that at the time. First, last, stating this in a neutral manner. Capitalism is an ism, though. And first, last, second Red Scare. Yeah, I meant second Red Scare. The one relevant to 1948. But yes. I'd hate to sound reductionist, but there were definitely no saints in this matter. This is what happens when I'm looking at it after the fact. The house, damn nice to see you streaming, man. I'm a big fan of your work, and even saw the Lebanon Civil War videos with my grandfather, who fought there and captured a few tanks too. So yeah, thanks. Well, thank you, the house. I appreciate it. Appreciate somebody was able to sit through the whole thing, and I imagine the supercut of that will probably be out in January, maybe. Yeah, it's like, and I imagine there's actually a couple pieces of extra footage I'm gonna add to it, as well as some things I'm gonna have to edit, mostly because some older videos got like copyright claimed, and so I want to avoid some of those problems. But yeah, Shen Partey, Record Head is more creepy than Siren Head. Yeah, the times. Damn. Fought for the Israelis? Yes. Grapes, referencing Reagan. Devon, Canada. 1948, this show probably didn't go over well in the South when they say, beware of anyone who tries to divide us by race hatred. Oh, yeah. And, of course, it should be remembered this is 1948, so it's right after World War II, and so this whole idea of, the Holocaust is fresh in people's minds, and so that's definitely probably a motivating factor behind that idea. See, Danny McCordle, that all seemed more like capitalism than communism, which is odd, right? See, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, all the bad things, all the isms they were showing was communism. More various isms. You had your labor union guy wanting, his labor unionism, the farmers, the corporatism guy, and then the Joe Schmo American. But, yeah. All right, we have 2 more cartoons to watch planned. The next one is Meet King Joe from 1949. So, let us get this started again.
Joe, the king of the workers of the world.
Hi, folks.
Joe's the king because he can buy more with his wages than any other worker on the globe. Now, what makes it possible for Joe to earn such a good living? He's no smarter than workers in other countries.
Are you kidding?
He's no stronger than workers in other lands.
Oh, yeah? Well, just watch me.
Just because Joe's an American doesn't mean...
Yeah? Well, being an American is the best thing in the... Oh! My back!
Sure, being an American is great, but how could you be superior to any foreigner when you or your folks might be any one of a dozen different races or religions? So, if you're no Superman, it must be the American way of doing things that makes you the luckiest guy in the world.
I don't think I'm so lucky.
You don't? Well, let me show you.
Hey, what's that gadget? Television?
No, it's a time machine. Just pull that lever. You'll see how people worked 100 years ago.
Hey, this I like.
Oh, that's too far back. Try again. We want to stop at 1850.
Who's the character?
That's your grandfather, Joe.
Oh.
He had to work 69 hours.
Okay, so I just took a look for a second there, looked up Harding College. So I was curious. It's called Harding University now. According to Wikipedia, Harding University is a private university with its main campus in, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Searcy, Arkansas, or Searcy, Arkansas. It is the largest private university in Arkansas, established in 1924. The institution offers undergraduate, graduate, and pre-professional programs. The university also comprises Harding School of Theology, located in Memphis, Tennessee, which was formerly known as Harding Graduate School of Religion. Harding is one of several institutions of higher learning associated with the Churches of Christ. Okay, so Harding College, it seems to be a private religious college, it looks like, and they're the ones who sponsored these, or commissioned them. How they're funded, I don't know, but at least that's what it seems to be on the surface. Had to dig more to find out more at some later point.
Hours a week to earn a living because he had only inexpensive hand tools and his own strength to help him make things. Your grandfather was a powerful man, yet his strength equaled only 1/10 of a horsepower. You have hundreds of horsepower in this costly giant of a machine to multiply your strength and efficiency 1,000 times. This makes it possible for you to earn more than any worker in history. And still have leisure time each day to enjoy life.
So I'm lucky. But what about the rich guy who does nothing while I do the work?
True, there are rich people who contribute nothing. And there are poor people who contribute the same. But most of the invested capital that buys the tools you use comes from your fellow Americans. 40 million of us have money in the banks. 70 million of us own insurance policies. Over 15 million of us invest savings in corporation stocks and bonds, which help to finance industry. Each year, the people of America invest billions of dollars to create new plants and equipment. This invested capital buys the tools which make a man's labor worth more because he produces more.
In China, for example, where there is practically no capital available for investment in plants or tools, a man's labor is not worth.
Hold on a second there. That map of China includes Mongolia and Korea. No one needs to show this to Tiger Star. He'll bitch about other things. Or you just show him this frame. But, yeah, looks like you got Mongolia as part of China, as is Korea. And Taiwan is just gone. But I'm not one of those map fetishists. I don't play Paradox games. I like the idea, but they're too hands-on. Too much micromanaging.
Where there is practically no capital available for investment in plants or tools.
Also, since this cartoon was from 1949, they're talking about, and was likely produced in, 1948, this means that they're talking about pre-communist China. They're not talking about communist China. This is, China, the last days of the nationalists.
A man's labor is not worth very much. A coolie takes 10 days to move 10 gallons of kerosene 100 miles at a freight cost.
Yikes. Yeah, the cartoon is definitely showing its age now. Everything before this point could have just been written off as, yeah, that's standard, capitalist talking points. This is a bit, this ages more poorly than the rest of it has so far.
Cost of 10 cents a gallon. An American railroad worker takes only 2 hours to move 100,000 gallons of kerosene 100 miles at a freight cost of 1 cent a gallon. The coolie makes 10 cents a day. An average American railroad worker makes $10 a day, or 100 times more than the coolie. The average railroad worker has the benefit of a $20,000 investment in equipment. The Chinese coolie's equipment is worth only 10 cents. With constant improvement in expensive tools and the skill to use them, the value of any man's labor can be multiplied many times.
I guess you can give an animated Chinaman a railroad, but you can't make him not look like an animated Chinaman from the 40s.
Naturally, the people in this country who invest their savings with industry expect dividends. No dividends, no investments. Without new capital each year to finance new plants, tools, and equipment, labor and management would soon find themselves in pretty bad shape.
Yeah, without capital to buy new tools, I might not do so good. But look what a new invention did to my grandpa. For 25 years, he knocks his brains out in the wagon works. Then along comes the gas buggy. Need I tell you what happened to Grandpop?
The history of our country proves that new inventions create thousands of jobs for everyone they displace. So it wasn't long before your grandfather had a better job at more pay for less work.
Ah, nice. They address the Luddites here. The people fearing that technology will create massive unemployment. Neat.
Our industrial progress is largely the result of the competitive struggle between companies to capture the market to increase profits. Huge sums are spent each year to make a better product to sell for less. Yet, regardless of how much money is spent to develop a new idea, there is often failure. When research proves successful, everyone shares in the accomplishment. The business which fails to give the consumer as much value as a competitor gives often goes bankrupt. However, on a national scale, competition gives the greatest good to the greatest number by continually producing more and better goods at lower prices. American way of doing things makes it possible for more people to own their own homes. We're only 7% of the world's population, but we have 50% of the radios. We have 54% of the world's telephones. Americans own practically all the refrigerators in existence to give them plenty of ice quickly and easily. Bathtubs, we've got 92% of them. Most of us have the leisure time to enjoy.
I'd say I'd still consider, I'm strongly considering that we should take away Europe's first world status, because apparently they don't have air conditioning. And like in a lot of places, he says they don't even have like ceiling fans, which is like, come on, Europe, what are you doing? We really just need to take away their first world status until they can get that sorted out, because it's like, yeah, I'm sorry, climate change isn't undoing itself anytime soon, and you're going to need some of that stuff.
Enjoy the peace and quiet of the beautiful countryside as we drive about in 72% of the world's automobiles.
I told you to turn at the last corner. If you don't eat it, you'll eat it. I know, I want to get candy bar.
Under the protection of our freedoms, American labor, management, and capital, the greatest production team in the history of mankind, have made the United States the industrial master of the world. Capital must continue to provide industry with the funds to create new tools and plants. Labor and management must continue to increase the production of better goods at lower prices, so that more people will be able to buy the things that make life easier and happier for all of us. Then Joe will continue to be the king of the workers of the world.
You said it, brother.
And that is cartoon number 2. All right, let's discuss. All right, so yeah, I addressed Shamparte's question of what is Harding College. I believe it is a private religious university in Arkansas. See, so Joe is a millionaire then, with the strength of double D. Not exactly sure what's being asked there. I've ran a press like that. Not fun. Yeah, Shenparte, that time machine is the TV mind machine from that episode of Futurama. Perhaps. Emperor Tiger Star is disappointed with the map. It is. And it has aged like milk, Hardy hat. Yep, 1940s casual racism. That's, you know, you're going to see that. Which is an odd, because the previous video talks about, you know, about hate. It's like, but then again, yeah, the casual racism here, it's casual racism, but it's also not like, for lack of better words, malicious racism. It's just kind of like, it's the words they used at the time that nobody thought was a bad thing, you know, kind of like not even too long ago, like just 12 years ago, people used the word gay to mean stupid. Or like, if you thought someone was stupid, you'd call them a fag or something, you know? It's like, that wasn't very long ago. And so it's just kind of words that are just, no one thought twice about whether or not those words were okay at the time. See, Devon, Canada, they would mock these videos as just trying to be PragerU if it was made today. Probably right, yeah. It's like, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of your, if some of those, you know, lefty bread tuber type streamers have reacted to them. I'd be surprised if no one had done it. So, yeah, that's probably the case. Alright, the house. Alright, it's 5 a.m. here in Israel, so I gotta go to sleep. Oh, yep, get some sleep, house. You got, you know, it's like, I appreciate you coming by the stream, and I'm sorry it's almost, you know, we're almost 12 hours apart. So, sorry about that, but I hope you enjoyed what you got to see, and the live stream will be, you know, the VOD, the live stream will still be on the channel later. Andrew G. The character that brings logic to the contract looks like Truman. It might be. It's 1949, so Truman's still president, and so it looks like that might be what they're referencing. Shen Partey, if you don't have air condition, you are like the equivalent of people who like pineapple on pizza. I don't know. What are they? I'm a pineapple on pizza guy, unfortunately, so I guess I'm a European then. But yeah, so that's neat stuff, right? So I've got one more I'm planning to look at this evening. The Profit Motive from 1948. So here we go. Oop, sorry, need to put it back on screen there. I need to learn how to set up the OBS in a way that I can just click something on my Stream Deck to automatically do it. I know there are ways, I just haven't taken the time to learn it.
Our story begins. He is headed for the old fishing hole. Uh-oh. Too bad. Freddie had helped his mother make soft soap to sell to their friends and neighbors.
Shucks, if I didn't have to work. Think of all the fun I could be having. Gee.
Freddie tries to figure out an easier and quicker way to make soap. He goes to work to make his dreams of fun come true. After years of working night and day, Freddie's experiments bring success.
Soap in cakes.
Pretty soon, word gets around to the housewives who want shorter, easier wash days and cleaner clothes. Freddie's soap is just what they need. He invests his profits in
Women be shopping, am I right, fellas?
larger quarters and new equipment to make enough soap to satisfy the demand. Finally, his dreams come true. Time off for fun on Saturday. Hey, Freddie, a guy can fish anytime.
At 23 skidoo.
Goodbye, Freddie.
Hopelessly in love, he wants to make good in a big way. So, back to work. As the company grows, it brings the railroad and other businesses to town. Increased property taxes from the thriving community help to build better schools, streets, parks, libraries, playgrounds, and waterworks. Taxes even help to provide more and better governmental services, such as police protection. Before long, Freddie
that's...
Before long...
that's like a British style constable. Like, did American law enforcement ever dress like that? Because it's like that long uniform, especially the hat or helmet, whatever that's supposed to be. It makes them look more like a stereotypical like British constable from like the late 1800s. So I don't know if this is just supposed to be. Yeah, I don't know. It's just weird.
Before long, Freddie becomes a successful businessman. And, incidentally, a successful husband and father. Fudsy's expanding company creates all kinds of jobs that never existed before. To increase production and sales, Fudsy builds up a strong labor management team. Each year, he invests a portion of his profits in research to develop better soap that can be made to sell at lower prices. The Fudsy Company continues to grow with the years because it makes a good soap, which in competition with others sells at a fair price. Competition forces each manufacturer to improve his product, to sell it for less, and to give the consumer more for $1 than his competitor. And Fudsy is hard to beat. Finally, he gets so many orders he realizes that one factory simply can't meet the demand. His profit motive starts sparking to figure out a way to increase production. He forms a corporation and issues stock to raise money to build factories from coast to coast. Fudsy's employees have faith in his management and back him with their savings. Banks loan depositors money to help finance the expansion program. Insurance companies loan the funds of their policyholders to help build the factories. Stock exchanges act as a clearinghouse for people from all walks of life to buy securities. Before long, everybody gets plenty of soap. At last, Fudsy's success is complete. Soap City! The profit motive, which drove Fudsy to accomplish so much, may bring out the evil as well as the good.
Hello? Fudsy, old boy, I've got a great idea. Between us, we control 70% of the country's soap sales.
Yeah, but quiet. Let's see what's cooking. I smell trouble.
Let's raise and fix our prices. Controlling 70% of the market where we'll clean up.
Terrific. We'll make millions. Millions. Go.
Quiet! Okay, Sam, it's a deal.
You'll be sorry.
Fudsy and Sam Sudso raise and fix prices, but the result is not what they expect. A competitor comes along with a good bar of soap that sells at a lower price. Since shoppers always seek maximum value, only the lower priced soap sells. While Fudsy and Sam Sudso's profits...
This is actually kind of a... Well, this actually bears out to be true when you look at the history of, monopolies in the U.S. Like, in the history of, sort of monopolization in the U.S., you find there are very few true, natural monopolies, as in there's a company that's just so better than everyone else that no one else can compete in the market. There are so few true monopolies, and most monopolies that exist are put in place by actions of the government, or the state, as depending on if you read a lot of Murray Rothbard, or that ilk, they'll obsessively call it the state. But yeah, and when you look at the 19th century and the history of the railroads and the attempts to try and regulate them, most of the time the people advocating for regulating the railroads, well, those railroad regulations were being lobbied for by the railroads themselves because it would increase the burdens, it would increase the cost of trying to enter the market, and therefore no one else could get in. And most of the railroad trusts, well, no, not all, not most, they all eventually failed. Whenever they tried to collude together, either one of the participating parties would secretly undermine the rest of them by charging less, or some outside high railroad company would get into that market and charge less, which would eventually cause the whole trust to fall apart as they all start trying to undercut each other in terms of price. And so, and although they try to describe it as, pro-capitalism propaganda, as it says here in the title of the video, it's actually, well, borne out by the facts.
Turn into lawsuits. 99 times out of 100, competition works. When it doesn't, the government steps in to prevent monopolistic attempts.
That was a tough break. Now the next time...
Only a business operating at a steady profit can give its workers security and employee benefits. Operating at a profit, a business can provide the employee with comfortable, colorful working conditions, high wages, and steady employment, first aid and health protection, accident and life insurance, time off for vacations.
So funny enough that the life insurance thing there, that is a legacy of World War II. So prior to World War II, most insurance wasn't nearly as big. Like, the insurance industry wasn't nearly as big prior to World War II. And those who did have insurance, it was mostly usually purchased separate from your job. But during the war, the government didn't want people moving around. And so the federal government put in place wage controls, basically telling companies that you cannot attract new workers to your you cannot attract new workers for your business by offering to pay them more, which is what a normal market economy would do. It's like if you wanted more workers, you would offer to pay them more to bring them in. That's what we've seen some of that in the last couple of years with the labor shortage and whatnot. Well, during World War II, they didn't want that happening. It's like if you were working in a factory, they didn't want you. It's like if you were working in a factory making some kind of like war good, they wouldn't want you moving over to another factory at some other industry. They wanted you to stay where you were. And so first they put in, wage controls to say, okay, you cannot you cannot raise a person's wages or offer a person higher wages to get them to switch jobs. And then they put in price controls to say, okay, well, if people's wages can't go up, but the supply of goods is going down because of the war effort, then we're also going to have to control the prices as well. Well, businesses, however, businesses, especially like businesses that weren't, making war goods, still needed workers, and they still needed to attract skilled workers. And so what they started doing, since they couldn't offer higher wages, they started offering additional benefits like insurance. We'll pay for your health insurance. We'll pay for life insurance. We'll pay for retirement. All those things became really a thing during World War II in order to attract workers. And by the time the war was over, people had gotten used to it. And so, and that's basically what happened. People got used to it. And the system just kind of never went away for a large segment of the economy. But the problem, of course, was that if you lost your job, you lost all of those things as well. And so this is just kind of another, like, relic of the time, I guess.
Time off for vacation. The employee working for a profitable business can maintain a savings account, own his own home, and have plenty of leisure to enjoy the peace and quiet of family life. When investors receive fair dividends, they are eager to supply industry with a steady flow of capital to create new tools and plants, which in turn create new jobs. With business prosperous and employment high, the farmer has a ready and profitable market for the sale of his produce. When businesses all over the country operate at a steady profit, our economic health is tops. Billions in taxes paid out of profits flow into local, state, and governments. The profit motive has been the driving force back of the growth of American industry. The American system of free enterprise will give the young people of today the freedom of opportunity to develop ideas which will make a better way of life for the children of tomorrow.
All right. That concludes our featured programming, but now for the probably another 20-30 minutes we can turn this into a Q&A. So, what do you guys want to talk about? Let me answer your questions. All right, let me catch up with what you guys were asking before. Nolan Matson. Hello. Hello there, Nolan. The good for you. The Procter & Gamble story. Yeah, that about sounds right. Dr. Squatch Soap. Freddie also does animal testing. Devin Canada. He broke etiquette in his flirtation. Old-fashioned. Woodchuck00. The cop stole the apple. The cop is a thief. Hey, a cheap apple. It is better not to ask questions. The Shenparté, yeah, it does look British. Oh, yeah, the constable. Looks more like late 1800s American police uniforms. It might be. I'm not super familiar with the police uniforms from that time, so it might be the case. Maybe that was just a Victorian era thing. It feels more like a pro soap ad. Devin Canada. I took out my book on Detective Frank Geyer, and their hats were more like flat hats, almost Civil War uniforms. Frank Geyer was in the 1800s. He was one of the ones who investigated the Holmes, H.H. Holmes. Is against corporatism and cronyism. It is. It definitely is. So yeah, what age range are these cartoons marketed for? I don't know. I do not know. I mean, they have to be old enough to understand the concepts while still being persuadable. So no idea, honestly. Cartoons in the 1940s were shown before a theater, movie, or between, so I think mostly adults were the target audience. True, but then again, kids went to the movies as well, and, well, they liked cartoons also. So, first last. So the moral of the story is Fudzy never got to go fishing, sacrificed his childhood for profits, didn't get legally held accountable for price fixing, and unions are good if you don't mention them. That's probably not the case, but don't feel like fighting that right now. Shenparté, I'm clocking out. Night, everybody. Good night, Shenparté. Nolan Matson, talk about Lutheranism. Hello again, Nolan. And hit it home, opinion question. Was the Vietnam War winnable? In what sense? Militarily winnable? It's one of those things where it's like, it was militarily winnable in the same way Afghanistan was militarily winnable. Not without a tremendous cost to all parties involved. not without tremendous cost to all parties involved. I don't think Vietnam was winnable in a way that would have made it worth it, I think. And as to talking about Lutheranism, Matson, I don't know what aspect or what about Lutheranism you want me to talk about. I guess, questions, I guess, then. All right, are there any questions, anybody? Turning this into a Q&A, since our featured presentation is complete. Let's see, Good For You 3000. Return to Mocha Island would be a good film produced in the 80s by Exxon. Might consider doing that. Don't know if it would be part of a anti-communism propaganda series, but I can definitely do reaction stuff to that. And I might even make a video about this set of cartoons, make it about Harding University and this set of cartoons. I might do a video about that and try to find out the background information on them. Devin Canada, are we going to do anti-communist music sometime? I don't know. I don't think I've heard anti-communist music. Yeah, I don't know if I've heard any anti-communist music explicitly. Sick Zappy Beef. Was the Iraq War justified? It was not justified based on what we know now. It was more forgivable at the moment, but even then there were people who questioned the legitimacy. But from all the evidence you find is that, from all the evidence, President Bush legitimately believed that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, and Saddam Hussein had spent a lot of time trying to make people think he had weapons of mass destruction. And when the UN inspectors came in, once again, when people talk about the lead up to the Iraq War, they usually, condense the timeline down to, America accuses Iraq of having weapons. UN weapons inspectors go in and don't find any weapons. America invades Iraq anyways, when in reality it was the U.S., accuses Saddam of having weapons. Saddam says, I don't have weapons. The U.S. asks the UN to go in and search for weapons. The UN tries to go in and search for weapons, and Saddam says, no, you can't search here. No, you can't search here. And does this over and over again. And so he was slowballing them. And so, with all that in mind, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask, what was Saddam trying to hide? Now, granted, with everything we know now, it was not justified. But at the time, we didn't have all that information. So it was hard. I think not going in would have been definitely a better move. But it was also, I think, much more... I think it's more forgivable than a lot of other people my age do. That doesn't mean I think it was a good policy long run. I think it caused more problems in the long run than it would. And I would argue that a lot of our problems today, a lot of our political divisiveness today dates back to it. But I would also say it dates back to, at least the 2000 election, if not the impeachment of Bill Clinton. But that's a video for another time. Nolan Matson, why do you think that American Lutheranism forgot about Scandinavian Lutheran Church history? Well, there are Scandinavian Lutherans here in the U.S. It's just that the Scandinavian Lutheran churches, it's just, they became mainline churches, whereas the German Lutherans tended to, well, I hesitate to call them evangelicals because Lutherans, especially German Lutherans, don't like calling themselves evangelicals, largely because in the United States, in the context of the United States, hates the evangelicalism has more or less been a term that's been monopolized by Calvinists. And as Lutherans, we don't like Calvinism very much. And for Scandinavians, I think we also forget about Scandinavian Lutherans because the Scandinavian Lutherans aren't very Lutheran anymore. You know, they tended to, like, when Scandinavians had the choice between we could keep our Scandinavian cultural identity or we could stay being Lutherans, they chose their cultural identity, whereas the German Lutherans were not given a choice. You know, it's like, it was either, you know, get deported. Between the two world wars, basically, German Lutherans in the United States were basically kind of like had a mini, I don't want to call it a cultural genocide because that implies a much harsher treatment than it was, but it's also kind of hard to think of it. I'm having trouble coming up with another word. Like what's the cultural equivalent? Like, you know, kind of like how there's genocide and then there's culture, like there's genocide and then there's ethnic cleansing, you know, it's just like implied to be like this less severe version of genocide. Well, if someone wants to say like cultural genocide, what's a less harsh version of cultural genocide? Because that's kind of what happened to German Americans. Because like there's not very much German culture in the United States, or at least explicitly German culture, that hadn't been fully just Americanized. Let's see, Sick Zappy Beef. Marty Robbins has some anti-communist music. Marty Robbins, I look into that. The Woodchuck00, did the USSR put out propaganda cartoons? They could be funny. They did put out propaganda cartoons, though I don't think they were really seen outside the USSR, not until after the Cold War anyways. I've seen some of them, and the issue with most of them, of course, is that, well, most of them aren't dubbed in English, which makes, you know, watching them a little, it requires more work. See, Sick Zappy Beef. Yeah, I also think Afghanistan would have been much more successful if the Iraq War didn't happen. Yeah, it's possible, but something that should be considered is the fact that the Iraq War was technically successful. You know, it's like the United States overthrew Saddam and we installed a democratic government that is still standing to this day. You know, like, granted that required the U.S. to go back in to stop ISIS, but it was technically successful in doing it. And the reason Iraq was, it's this weird sort of like conundrum, you know, it's like Afghanistan was always like Obama tried to portray Afghanistan as, you know, Afghanistan's the good war and Iraq was the bad war. But like Afghanistan was the good war, but due to like the history and the facts on the ground, it was basically unwinnable. Whereas Iraq was like the bad war, but the situation on the ground actually made it winnable. You know, it's this duality. See, Mike Avelli, loved your video on the Black Hebrew Israelites. Do you get some friendly words from them in the comments? Oh, I do. I get some comments from Black Hebrew Israelites in that video, as well as basically any other video I make about Jewish history. It's like if I make a video about Jewish history, the Black Hebrew Israelites will be there complaining that the Jews, like the visual depictions of the Jews, are lighter skinned than they prefer. First last, there's a song titled something like Anti-Right. I saw a video from someone covering it. I'm guessing that's some anti-communist music. Let's see. Devon, Canada, Carson Robinson sung I Ain't No Communist in 1952. Alright, yeah, so I might do something about anti-communist music for a future live stream. Frank Castle 498. I heard a lot of resources got rerouted to Iraq once that kicked off. Yeah, that was an issue. Unfortunately for Afghanistan, I just don't think Afghanistan was winnable in the same way Iraq was, which is, like I said, the tragic thing. Iraq was, you know, less justified but more winnable, whereas Afghanistan was more justifiable but less winnable. You know, it's like, yeah, it's tragic. Just tragic. Alright, so I'm gonna take questions for a couple more minutes, and then I think I'll call it a night. So get your last minute questions in. So 6 Zappy Beef. I'm surprised your Martin Luther video didn't do great. I think it was a good video. Well, I do as well, but there's a lot of reasons for why that happened. For one, Martin Luther, most people aren't looking for Martin Luther. That's just topic-wise, it wasn't great. Had I been able to come out with it a few weeks earlier, it may have performed slightly better because, you know, it was closer to Reformation Day, and so it could have done that. But unfortunately, when arranging the collaboration between all the channels that were involved in Operation Deutschland, we couldn't get it ready earlier than last Friday. And so that's kind of where we are there. Yeah, the other reason, of course, is that right now the YouTube channel is still just kind of like, I've talked about this before, but there's like this thing called negative view velocity on YouTube, where basically if a video performs poorly, then YouTube will then that tells YouTube that, oh, not as many people want to watch this person's videos. We're going to show their video to fewer people next time. And if that subsequent video, which causes the subsequent video to perform poorly, and then YouTube says, oh, well, if people aren't watching this video, if his own subscribers aren't even watching, then why should we show it to people who aren't subscribed? And that can snowball after a while. But I think after the last 2 videos, my video about the Camp David Accords and now Martin Luther, I think I'm starting to turn it around, but it's going to take more time. Unfortunately, it's going to take some more time to wring all of that negative view velocity out of the algorithm for my channel. And so I'm just going to have to keep pumping out videos like I have, though because of how poorly they have been performing the last, 4 months now, I definitely can't afford to put out like super long, like 30+ minute videos. And so I'm probably for the next 3 to 6 months going to be trying to stick to 20-ish minute videos just so I can get more of them out. The Sam Rosenstock. Is there a lot of anti-Semitism in America or no? Oh, the default answer is there's more than I would like, but I think the United States is probably one of the least anti-Semitic countries in the world, or at the very least, the least openly anti-Semitic countries in the world. You know, it's like we're the first country in the world to grant Jews equal rights to everyone else. You know, it's like no other country in the world did that before we did. There are other countries that granted them certain privileges, but they didn't have the same rights as everyone else prior to the U.S. Constitution. Let's see, Gary Seth, what dies first? U.S., us, or the DEA? I don't know. Assuming you're asking for the Drug Enforcement Agency, no idea which dies first. Sam Rosenstock, what is the purpose of the international community in resolving disputes? Does the UN even matter? I'm not a big fan of the UN. I'm not as anti-UN as I was when I was younger, you know, but yeah, I don't see much point for the UN. I think it's mostly a waste of money. It's like, you don't need a big operation like that to, you know, like to have like international negotiations, because those were going on before the UN and they happen all the time without it. So the main purpose of the UN, I think, and one of the reasons we wanted to be, it's like one of the reasons the U.S. got heavily invested in the UN is I think they assumed it would have a bigger role than it actually did. And of course, with the UN Security Council designed as it is, with, you know, countries like China and Russia being ardently opposed to our interests, that just becomes a mostly useless body. Mike Avelli, thanks for the live. I dig what you do. Have a good night. You too, Mike. MG Kelly, I really appreciate your channel. Thank you for your work. Well, thank you very much, MG Kelly. First Last, at Sam Rosenstock, I'd say it serves its purpose as it requires everyone to participate in the dialogue, and that it inhibits escalation. It's not efficient, but it's a net. The UN mostly just used for making a big scene. There are lots of people who definitely think that. There are lots of people who definitely think the UN is nothing more than making a big scene. All right, and with that, I think I will call it quits for the evening. Thank you so much for spending the last hour and 20 with me. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I will see you in another live stream next month. I don't know what I'll be doing for that live stream. And I will hopefully have, no, I should have the next video out Saturday of next week. So not tomorrow, but the following Saturday. So until then, thanks for watching.